This All Things Cybersecurity webinar is brought to you by ACI Learning. Be bold, train smart. And by TechNado, your weekly source for the latest in security news. Join us every Thursday for a brand new episode. For loaning us our guest today, we want to thank Black Hills Information Security because testing should be collaborative, not adversarial. And coming up this spring in sunny Central Florida, it's Hack Space Con. Join us April 10th through the 13th at the Kennedy Space Center. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining us for this All Things Cybersecurity webinar. I'm Sophie Goodwin. I'll be your moderator and question asker for this show. And you can't see him yet, but over to my right is a man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. Mr. Daniel Lowrie, your host. Daniel, how you doing today?
Who am I? Oh, that's me. That's right.
You.
I'm Daniel Lowrie.
We went over this. You had lines.
I'll get it better next time, I swear.
We'll try. Yeah, we'll try again.
I'm doing great. I'm so glad. It's so much fun to do all things. I always look forward to our time here together with you good folks. You get to ask us questions. We get to answer them, hopefully rightly in some way, shape, or form. No, we try to give you the best of answers when it comes to your cybersecurity questions. But I'm really excited today. I'm actually kind of a tither, as it were, because of our guest.
A tither.
Yes. Do you want to introduce him, or should I?
You know,
Rochambeau?
I feel like you probably would do him more justice.
All right. Well, I have claimed him a tier 1 cyber ninja. His name, you talk about me needing no introduction. This is the one, the only, from Black Hills Information Security, Beau Bullock. Bull. I want to call you Bull. Beau, welcome. Say those things together. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad to have you, though, brother. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the format here, but we get to answer some questions from our chat room. It's all about cybersecurity. Anything you want's on the table. I will say now, Beau, you're kind of stock in trade. Something you're very well known for is your cloud security prowess and skills. You even teach a couple of classes on these things. Tell us a little bit about your background. Just give us the elevator pitch on what got you into cloud being kind of your focus and some interesting things about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey just to end up in cloud. Cause like, as you mentioned, like I have a lot of things. Like, so when I started Black Hills 10 years ago, I was doing like a gamut of all things cybersecurity, like all things pen testing. So, I started out doing things like physical penetration tests, doing wireless assessments, doing web applications, internal pen tests, external pen tests, all the things, right? And over the years, we ended up doing a lot more red team assessments where, especially over the last, 5-6 years, we've been, picking up so many more just straight up red team assessments for organizations. And a lot of those ended up really coming down to that element of attacking external infrastructure, and majority of that being cloud these days. And even when we're doing phishing attacks against employees at an organization, a lot of organizations are using N365. And so, kind of natively, we're still kind of attacking the cloud, even when we're doing phishing attacks. And, if we were to land a credential, we have to know what to do with that. And for me, that's really kind of where it started. It was like that necessity from needing to kind of pivot our initial thinking around getting initial access to targeting cloud infrastructure. And for me, like just because of that, because I have been, in it for so long now, like I ended up writing a class, which I teach, which is Breaching the Cloud, where I basically walk through all of the methodology that I use for attacking cloud networks.
Oh, that's awesome. There's one thing I always like to ask our guests when they come on, because I think it's very helpful for anybody that's watching it, including myself, right? It's always nice to see what people are doing, and as far as how they're leveling up, how are they skilling up? So for someone who is at your level, what are you doing to continually further your education, your skill level, so that you can take on the next set of things that you need to be able to test against? What is Beau engaged in? How does that look for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, being in and out of doing different networks every week is probably the biggest factor for me to have that requirement for needing to know more. Kills, we test a lot of different types of companies, and so we get to see a lot of different setups, a lot of different configurations, and through that, I end up, hitting new pieces of technologies that I maybe have not touched before, right? especially with the cloud world. With pretty much all cloud providers, there's like 1,000 different services, like everything from deploying virtual machines to databases to web applications, and now you've got things like blockchain and AI. And so, like, actually, AI is a great example of this that I've recently had to go and try to learn more about, because we've actually had multiple customers now come to us that wanted us to test their implementation of their like AI, their own LLM uh, service that they're implementing in their own companies. And a lot of that is stuff that we haven't touched before. It's not something that we've actually really dug into. And so for me personally, it's like whenever I get something like that, I usually take it to my own little lab scenario. The magic of cloud providers is it's really easy to go and deploy stuff yourself now. So, it's not super expensive to go and spin up, some containers, or go, deploy some resources that kind of mimic what you're up against in the real world. And so that's for me. Like I typically tend to go and just poke around and try to find things myself. The other big thing is writing tools, right? Um, Anytime that we have a necessity to attack something new, um, and we go about writing a tool to accomplish that, there's always cases where we're learning new stuff about the back end of how things work. So the great example is, I just released a tool called Graph Runner a couple months ago, and that specific like half year of R&D basically was me just opening up an intercepting proxy and basically just intercepting traffic between me and an application, specifically like the Azure portal, and just poking around and seeing what happened if I changed stuff, seeing what happened, if I were to send certain requests in a different way, and just kind of trying to break stuff. um, realistically, like that's a lot of times where some of the cooler things kind of come from, is when you do try to just break things, and you see how the app reacts, and then ultimately you learn something new. You may find vulnerabilities, and ultimately can create something that hopefully somebody else can use too.
I love that answer. I love that your answer was, I build something and I look at it a lot and I see, what is this doing? What is this? Let me push that. What does
So
that do?
it's hard for me now, because I mean, so my go-to answer honestly is CTFs. Like
Yeah.
to like, if I were to be like completely straightforward with you, like, and I were just not to give that whole spiel about my what I do day in and day out, CTFs at the heart is really where I kind of got to where I am today. Just participating in CTFs, because before I worked at a penetration testing company, I was on the defense. I was on blue team. So I worked at a bank. I worked at a hospital before that, and both of those roles don't really provide a whole lot of opportunity, or they didn't really provide a whole lot of opportunity into me trying to identify these new attack paths, right? But now you have things like Hack the Box. You have a million different types of CTFs now. There's multiple cyber ranges out there that are available to people.
You got a favorite?
For me starting out, oh, go ahead.
You got a favorite?
Favorite CTF?
Yeah. Like, or at least a
So
platform
in
or a cyber
general,
range.
yeah. So I've always been a fan of the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge. I love the work they put into it, and it's fun.
Yeah. It does help,
It's
doesn't it?
just it's a Yeah, adding an entertaining element to it for sure,
Yeah.
makes things fun. But in general, like puzzles in general tend to be just something that I like to kind of go and poke at. But the thing for me is that with CTFs, you're presented a challenge that there's an answer to, right? Like that there is a way to solve it. Maybe you don't know how to solve it. So you are then tasked with going and trying to teach yourself now how can I go about figuring this out, right? um, I would say like 95% of CTF questions, like I don't know the answers to, right? It's something that I know that there is an answer. It's a matter of how do you go and find it, you know? And through those types of scenarios is really where I think some of the best learning environments can kind of come from.
Yeah. I used to spend a lot of times in CTFs myself, and you learn so much because you go, well, what is that? What's going on here? I don't know what this is. Oh, this is the thing you want me to hack. Okay. Well, let me go learn a little more about this thing, because obviously there's some known vulnerability that is
Yep.
associated with this piece of technology. Now I just got to start figuring
Hmm.
out which ones that you're trying to point me to, learn how to exploit that, and then use that to exploit it. And now go on. And you tend up building your own lab so that you can see what's
Yep.
going on in the back. It's really good for learning.
That's
So I also love CTS.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to contrast that with like the real world, right?
Yeah.
There's not always a vulnerability, right? Like, it's not always something that you can, like let's say you had an external facing web server, right? Like, there's not always something that's going to get you into that web server. So it's not as easy to just go and learn something new, in that sense, right? Like, if you
Right.
know that there's an answer to solving this particular challenge, like you will learn something new no matter how you approach it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, this has been a good kickoff, I think, to this, but I feel like Sophia's giving me the eye, like, hey, we have questions. Don't forget. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, questions.
Yeah.
That's right. I feel I'm just monopolizing Beau's time. So let's get to the questions, Sophia. What's the first
Yeah.
question we
You
have?
could tell by the way I was
Yeah, she
squirming
was
in my
gritting her
seat. I
teeth.
was over here
She
just
was just
itching
like,
to go. We do have some questions though. We do. We've got a couple different platforms that we're broadcasting to today. So this first question comes to us from Gerald Ozier, who's watching from Zoom. Gerald's actually one of our friends. So thanks for watching, Jerry. He wants to know how much cloud offensive security skills are transferable across cloud platforms.
ooh, how much cloud offensive security skills are transferable across cloud platforms? That's a really good question because not all cloud platforms are the same. Obviously, like you just look at AWS and Azure and you're like, these are these the same? They do the same thing? You're like, yeah, they do. But it's very different. Beau, you've got a lot of experience with this, so I can't wait to hear how
Yeah,
much
no,
does
I
this
I
cross
love the
pollinate?
question. Yeah, awesome. Also, what's up, Gerald? That's awesome. He's listening. So, all right. So, check it out. So, with cloud providers, I teach a class that actually teaches three providers. So, Azure, GCP, and AWS. I don't actually include labs for GCP because a lot of the same attacks apply directly across the different cloud providers. So, when it comes to the skills that are needed and are they transferable, absolutely. When you look at the types of skills that are needed to attack one cloud platform, absolutely transfer to the other ones. Um, Ultimately, what it ends up coming down to is what command line tool you're using and how like the syntax works in most cases. But like to give you an example, if you're attacking or enumerating, let's say you're enumerating something like virtual machines in one network, like you can do that in every single cloud provider. It's just a matter of what the CLI tool you're actually using, the command line tool. The actual syntax looks like, right? Like you may be using the AZ CLI for Azure, or you might be using G Cloud for GCP, or you might be using the AWS CLI for AWS. So in a lot of cases, those same skills do transfer across directly. A lot of the same types of attacks apply too. Similar types of vulnerabilities, similar types of configurations that tend to get misconfigured to allow attackers to get in. I will say this. I will say that from our point of view as pen testers and from my experience, attacking, hundreds of different customers, red team assessment wise, from an offensive kind of attack standpoint, we tend to see the majority of customers leverage Microsoft in one other unique case, and that is specifically the SaaS side, right? So
Hmm.
software as a service, O365, SharePoint, Teams. We tend to see like 95% of our customers leveraging Microsoft to that context. And why that becomes really important is because the attacks that we use against Microsoft customers directly transfer over to the cloud provider as well if they have what's known as like subscription access. So let's say, for example, we're attacking an IT admin who we know that they use both infrastructure, meaning they have virtual machines, databases, that kind of stuff, but they also are leveraging the SaaS services. So they're having, they're using email, right? And things like that with Outlook. If we were to phish somebody that has that access, right, or has has that service, right, has Outlook as their main email provider, there's a good chance that they may also have access to subscriptions as well and may have access to that infrastructure. So that becomes a really unique scenario for us because when it comes to like AWS, GCP, we tend to not see that direct crossover between the SaaS side and the infrastructure side as much. So yeah, to answer your question, like the one big difference would be like the SaaS services offered by Microsoft, just purely because they're the most used on the planet.
Interesting. And I'm guessing that most of the stuff that when you say it crosses over directly correlating, we're talking about like over permissioning things or making things accessible from,
Yep.
untrusted
Public
networks and things of
storage,
that
like
nature.
like
Yeah.
opening up storage buckets to the internet. Every service has that problem.
Is that like your number one? Like, well, let's go find all the things that's exposed, and then we'll get down to brass tacks.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. From a recon perspective, from the outside, like
Yeah.
that's one of the first things you would try to look for. Yep.
Fun, fun. Well, there you go, Jerry. Hopefully that answered your question, sir. And if not, we'll ask it again. Maybe we'll, we'll go after that. Sophia, I know you got more questions, though. What else we
I
got?
do. I
Yeah.
always have more questions. We've got another one. This also comes to us from Zoom. This is from David. David wants to know, do you believe AI will become the future of pen testing? And what is your estimation of the scope of AI infiltrating cybersecurity? Seems like AI is really a hot button topic for like the
Oh,
last several years.
Man, a day without AI would be like a day without sunshine. It just doesn't exist anymore, right? We have to breach that. And it's a very pertinent piece of conversation to have, though, because Bo, how hard are you leveraging AI as a pen tester and a red teamer? And how much of that are you going, man, this thing might actually take over where I don't like, is that something you fear where I'm going to become irrelevant because AI will just do it all? It's godlike powers.
I so I obviously I'm a human, and I'm biased that humans have a special ability that AI doesn't have. But to answer your question, I use AI every day. I use ChatGPT. I use Midjourney to make images for my slides now. Like
It,
I use it quite a bit.
we can
To
totally
write
draw
code.
fingers better than it can.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But as a pen tester, there are so many times where there are unique scenarios that come up that I don't think you could adequately program into AI. That I don't think that even with some of the smartest AI out there, well trained, I think that there are certain use cases where or certain types of things that we do on assessments that they might not be able to really accomplish. And it's purely just because of that human element and knowing how the world works, really, the human world. But I do think that there's absolutely place for AI in the daily workflow of everyone, like not just pen testers, but developers, everybody. And I think that that's really where it's going to be. I don't think it's going to end up like taking over pen testing necessarily. I think that it's definitely going to be a supplemental asset that's leveraged by everybody, though.
Yeah. What about the opposite end of that spectrum about the defenders? Do you think that they're going to be able to leverage AI a whole lot better to make those defenses more effective and therefore
I
making
think
your
so.
job much harder?
I think so. I think what's going to happen though is that you're going to see a new. Well, I think there already is. There already is a problem with the security around the AI you're building as well.
Mm.
So I think that there's already been a lot of products that say they use AI, right? Like the different EDRs of the world that say that they're using it to scan files and try to identify threats that haven't been identified before, that kind of thing. I think that there's room there for sure for analyzing malware, analyzing code. I mean, you were just talking a little bit ago how AI could spit out some malware for you very easy. The opposite's true though, right? It could identify potentially insecure things or malicious things, right?
Hmm.
Um, but also, I think that from the perspective of security risk, though, there's actually another really big problem there. So I'm not sure when Black Hills is going to do this webcast, but I got to hear internally, at least, of an amazing pen test that happened at our company where we tested a company that had AI implemented, and our pen testers basically asked the AI at the company how to hack their own company, and it helped us hack their company.
That
Like,
is
for
too
example,
funny.
like where
It's
like
it's an
yeah, yeah, like it
insider
was
threat.
like it legitimately was in this case. Like
Yeah.
we basically asked the AI where or how do we get access to your GitHub, internal GitHub? And it's like, well, you have to be in this group. And it's like, well, how do I add myself to that group? And it's like, oh, well, you have to just ask this one thing, and it added like figured out like I guess our guys figured out how to wait to like just add themselves to that group and then get access. Like it basically helped get access to this like internal Git repo.
Wow. That's
Um,
kind of the opposite of what they wanted to do, I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely right. And I think like there's going to be things like that too. Like risks around. I mean, you hear like about prompt injection, that kind of thing. But
Yeah. I
I
actually,
think like
speaking of CTFs, I did a prompt injection CTF called Gandalf. And it was very interesting. You learn a lot about how you phrase things and understanding the underlying system behind those LLMs and how they come up with
Mhm.
the answers that they give and the information that they have access to so that they can give you an answer, they might actually give you access to that information. So it's really interesting stuff that I'm not surprised to hear that you guys were able to use it to your advantage in a pen test. That doesn't surprise me at all. So
yeah, it's
Can be used for good or evil, I guess.
AI the devil. Are you prepared to worship your digital overlord there, Sophia?
I feel like I probably was just born prepared. You know, after a certain year, it's like you're just born into it.
Yeah.
So you kind of just accept it when you're born.
That's right. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
That's right.
Well, there's a word for that. I just accept my fate.
That's right.
I do have some more questions.
Oh, you have questions?
I do, if y'all are ready.
Let's do it.
So this one is interesting, and I don't know if y'all will really have an answer for this one. This comes to us from Dieter, who is watching from YouTube.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So I'm going to try to do this justice here.
This is good.
Dieter wants to know, is it turtleneck season in Florida? That disturbs me to the point of insanity. Sir, I am insane now.
Yes.
So
this is the part where we dance.
There it is. There it
is. Because you look like you're on sprockets right now.
All week.
All week. You've been wearing this.
I have a couple shirts like this, and
them.
it's finally below 70 in Florida, so I've been taking advantage. And
As
The
you
Rock
should.
too. They threw The Rock in there, so
I didn't know he was on sprockets.
I'm Dwayne the Sprock Johnson now. That's now my office identity.
Nice.
I just, I accept it.
Hey, we have to have some fun here.
We have to. Yeah.
You being on sprockets
we
is
would
my
go
favorite
crazy.
thing.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, there you go. Threw that in there. I'm sure Caleb's back there just cracking up.
Just chuckling.
We'll move on to our next question that you actually do have an answer for. Hopefully.
Okay, that sounds good.
Let's go ahead and jump to this one. This one comes to us from Ryan, who is watching from Zoom, and Ryan wants to know, what are your thoughts on purple teaming in the cloud?
Ooh, good question. Now, I think it would behoove us, Beau, don't just answer that question. Start with what is purple teaming properly, because some people might be confused on what we mean when we say purple team. And then what's your take on that as it applies to cloud pen testing?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so most people probably are familiar with red teaming and blue teaming, right? Red teaming being the offense, blue teaming being the defense. Purple teaming kind of takes both of those and squishes them together, and then we all get in the same room and we all, try to figure out the best ways to find your security flaws and then fix them collaboratively, as opposed to us as red teamers just attacking, hacking the network, giving you a report and saying, hey, have a nice day. So I think purple teaming is an amazing tool for any organization. I have been a part of a few pretty amazing purple teams myself. And every time I've gotten the opportunity to do it, it has been both I'd say useful for not only not only defenders who, are actually hiring us, but also us from the offensive side, because we tend to find new and interesting things because we're working with a defense company or a defender. Like I said, I started out on the defense side, but there are a lot of newer pen testers that may have not, right? I know for a fact that there's a lot of people, college kids that I talk to, and that, they want to go straight into pen testing, right? It's like that's the cool thing. But I think with that mindset, you miss out on a lot of that. That kind of like how things work on the defense side, right? Like you miss out a lot on that. So I think purple teaming can help. Even if you've been a defender before and now you're red teaming, it can help like a seasoned red teamer, learn more about the defense, because defense changes just as much as offense does. And there's new technologies, new ways to defend against things. I think collaboratively is one of the best ways to approach it. Now, when it comes to cloud specifically, I don't think there's much difference really between like doing a cloud-based purple team versus like a standard purple team. But I would say that it'd be beneficial so that us as attackers, like I could run a tool and try to perform let's say a password spray attack, and then I can be in the room with somebody else and they're saying, oh, here's the logs we're seeing, and then we try something else and we're like, oh well, we were able to bypass that. Can you see these? And go and implement new defenses because of that.
Yeah, I kind of like the iterative idea behind purple teaming as well. It's like, okay, well, we're going to attack you and let's see if that works, and let's see what you can defend against or what alerts to you. And now, okay, well, we got this far. Let's add some stuff. Let's change some things, set up new fences, better fences, and okay, let's do it again. And let's see if we get, noticed quicker. Okay, that worked. Okay, now let's try another angle. And you're just kind of iterating your way down to, well, we're just not successful anymore. I've gone through my entire bag of tricks here, and you're much more secure than you were when we started this little game. And
Mhm.
that's why I think, like, kind of to your point, why purple teaming is just such a cool way to go, because you're getting more instantaneous results. You're getting more real time feedback on what's working, what's not, and you have to know all those new technologies. Well, hey, we're just not good at defending against this specific technique that our attacks are doing. We need something new. We need something faster, better, stronger. Let's look out there and see what we got that we don't have now that we could be implementing, or maybe we know learn of a new technique that we've never heard of before, because we really have a weak spot here, and just that quick light on that and exposing those vulnerabilities and being able to plug those holes and then go back and try again and see, okay, that works, now let's move on, and getting, like I said, that iterative practice of purple teaming, really just giving that real time feedback. So that's my thoughts on the subject, though. I know Sophia's got her thoughts on questions that we have coming
I
from.
do. I always have a lot to say. I just don't say it.
And she just
We'll,
stares there and just
I
staring,
just sit there. Yeah, I'm
burning
just
holes through my head. Yep, there it
the
is.
entire time.
The
When
entire
we do
time.
episodes together too, that's all it is
Yeah,
the whole
when
time.
she's not on the camera, I'm just like, please stop staring at me.
I'm like Superman, but without the lasers. So, or he doesn't have laser vision. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and we'll jump to the next question. We're gonna pull this one, I think, from YouTube, because we've been doing a lot from Zoom.
Okay.
So I want to go to somebody from YouTube. This person wants to know, with the growing availability of AI tools, will biometric hacking become easier or possible?
That's an interesting thought. Beau, have you seen any biometrics being bypassed via AI technologies?
I haven't, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, especially with I would say, you know, how many photos get posted, right, daily? Like, that's one thing, right? So, like, I mean, using all, like, the photos you post on the internet, right, or even video like this right now, like, you could probably unlock my iPhone with this video. It's like
Yeah.
at this point, and so there's that angle. But then when it comes to, like, fingerprints and that kind of thing, I'm not entirely look from a bypassing scenario, but I mean, could be.
Yeah, I did
Hard to
hear
say.
that. I don't know which AI did it, but somebody was able to use AI to bypass 2FA so they told the AI, I need to get beyond this step, and they can't because it's trying to check whether or not I'm a human. And so what the AI did was it basically wrote the support staff and said, I'm vision impaired and I can't see the CAPTCHA. Can you please read it
Mhm.
to me? And they did. And then they was able to bypass 2FA that way through text. I'm
Nice.
like, that is crazy. So I think that kind of your point a moment ago about how we have this human factor, this ability to think in odd ways and come up with creative and interesting answers to questions that don't seem to correlate to each other. It's like, why would you even think to
Mhm.
do that? I don't know. I just did. And it worked because I don't know. It just does. And AI doesn't have the ability to do that. But when we're kind of like using it as a tool to do those things, it's going to be very, very scary. So, yeah, AI, again, devil, but a useful devil until it's not, and it enslaves us all. Anyway, Sophia, questions. Save us.
We'll go to a little bit of a less scary topic, a little,
Okay.
little less depressing. You guys were talking a little bit earlier about, I know Beau had mentioned that new students want to get into certain fields, right? Like want to jump into stuff right away. So this person, it's an anonymous user from Zoom, so ooh, mysterious. And this person says that they are a new cybersecurity student and wants to know if you can suggest a roadmap of what courses or topics are most important for newbies.
Ooh, that's probably the whole webinar right there.
Yep.
Well, I mean, but not everybody's path is the same, and I'm sure while we do have some overlap and similarities, which is probably what we need to point you to, that your journey is going to be your journey, and it's going to make you the cybersecurity professional you're going to end up being one day. But that said, there are definitely some foundational things that you need to understand. And Beau, I'm interested because I know what I've said. I've talked about this topic ad nauseum, and it's always great when I have new guests come on, people, especially guests like yourself we've never had on before. Let's hear your hot take on this. If you had to start right now, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna be a cyber pro. I'm gonna be awesome, and you had to tell that kid, to 16-year-old Beau, here's what you do. Go for
So what's funny is I actually just I went to my son's fifth grade class like last week to give this exact thing. So
it. You've already prepped for
I
this then.
went to go teach them how to be a bunch of hackers, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
that's it.
yeah. No, I mean, so I mean, I always had kind of a similar answer anyway.
Hmm.
But so the thing that I really tried to echo to a bunch of fifth graders is how many different niches there are in cybersecurity. So, when it comes to what you end up ultimately want to do, you have so many available options, right? So, like, just like he was saying, you have your own path, and I think one of the first things that I would understand is that you don't have to just choose one path initially. Kind of learning a little bit about everything, so you can kind of get a better idea of what you actually want to jump into, and what road you want to actually go down, is not something you have to decide today. Like, so, it might seem really like awesome to be like, oh, I want to go be a hacker and I want to go, hack into networks and be a pen tester. Like, that's, at first sounds, great and all. But know that there's also things like forensics where you get to go and pull data off of disks. You have incident response. You get to go like investigate the hacks that happen. You have, network security engineers where you get to go build the network that actually secures something like a bank or a hospital. And so you have all these different niches. And when it comes to foundational stuff, absolutely, there's just like Dan was saying, like there's absolutely a number of foundational things that I think are necessary across every single one of those niches. And things like networking, right? Like learning how networks work, learning how operating systems work, learning Windows, learning Linux, right? Very foundational stuff. And then on top of that, coding, and just becoming familiar with at least a coding language, and understanding kind of what it is that code is doing, because pretty much every single job I've ever had in security, I've coded at least some. Um, More now than ever because I'm in more of an offensive kind of R&D kind of thing, or R&D kind of role now. So I code a lot now, but historically, back when I was just a network security engineer, even then I was still writing PowerShell scripts to carry out various network tasks. So coding, networking, Windows, Linux foundational stuff. And then once you get kind of those initial foundations is when I would recommend jumping into learning more about the security aspects of those. So learning how vulnerabilities end up happening, learning how to exploit vulnerabilities, how to find them. And that, is another, full, few years of your path there. But I think ultimately keep in mind that there are a lot of opportunities, and different types of jobs may interest you more than others. Don't just like decide today like this is what I want to do. Keep an open mind, because there's definitely amazing roles in different types of jobs as well.
But what would you say is, and this is a Daniel follow up to this question. What would you say is the if you had to pick one skill that you would say, yeah, you got to learn all these things, but make sure you learn this because, in my experience, it's been the most useful tool. Whether I do defense or offense or whatever it is I'm doing, it's just been in my IT career has been super useful. What would that skill be? Number one with a bullet.
Um, how to ask the right question.
I
Like
love it.
I would say, I know that's such a terrible answer, but
It's not. It's
no,
an
I think
amazing
I
answer.
think that I think that knowing the right questions to ask is really going to help you find the every piece of knowledge you ever need to know. So especially now with like previously with Google, you had this too, right? But especially now with ChatGPT and AI, right? If you know the right question to ask, ChatGPT will tell you the answer, and it will help you understand, what it is you're trying to figure out. So, like, I think for me, like, I feel like I'm a professional Googler. Just like my skills are really at the heart of just being able to ask the right question of Google,
We do it
going
all
finding
day.
out what tool it is I'm trying to use, what misconfiguration I'm trying to assess. It's really how do you ask the right question.
Yeah, that's probably the best answer because I was if I were pressed with that question, I would say learning how to learn, but that's I think so adjacent to your answer that they're basically kind of the same thing, right? Being
Mhm.
able to learn how to get to the right answers and to learn to do that quickly is it doesn't matter what you're doing, that is going to be your best skill, and not being afraid to ask especially
Hmm.
like colleagues and people around you, and just going, "Hey, I don't know this," and just dropping the ego and going, "Yep, I do not know all things. I'm not omniscient. Could someone please help me?" That will send you far, far, far in this industry. So, great answer. I thought that was a phenomenal answer. Speaking of answers, I'm sure we have more when it comes to the lovely chat rooms that are throwing questions at us.
We do have more. Sorry, my mic's drooping a little bit, so just technical
It
difficulties. We'll be
it
fine.
didn't have its vitamins today.
It did
It's
not.
feeling.
Sure, we'll go with that. We're gonna go ahead and we'll jump to another question. This one's from Zoom, and it is specifically for Beau, but you probably will have something to offer here too, because I know you're a bit of a musician in your free
Oh,
time. So this question wants to know, Beau, how do you blend your passion for music with your career, if at all? And if you have any other tips for other creatives making the jump into the cybersecurity scene?
Like that's probably my favorite question so far. I was telling Dan, like my goal, from the time I was, starting to play guitar was to be a professional guitarist. And I've written a lot of music. I have had bands. That was ultimately where I wanted to go in life, And honestly, if I could do it today, I still would. But I ended up, kind of taking this other path of learning how to hack stuff, and that pays the bills now. So I get to have, this career that kind of helps pay the bills, and still get to do my hobby, and make music as I can. But how do I blend the passion of it? It's actually really interesting how the dynamic of the information security world kind of mirrors the music industry. Obviously you have certain jobs that you have lots of like standard things that you kind of go through, the standard motions you go through. But in my like most of the roles that I've been in, I've been able to be very creative, meaning that I've got to experiment, I've got to create new things, and that for me really touches on that really like instinctive creative element inside of me. Whenever I get to make something new, and like it's not making music, right? It's not creating something audible necessarily, but being able to create something new that I can then release to the public and then give it to other people so that they can take elements of it and reuse it too. That for me really is kind of what is hitting on that inner musician of myself. So, yeah. So what's your answer, Dan?
oh man, how do I balance that? Honestly, I noticed you have an amp behind you, and I saw some
Hmm.
pedals as well. So I would assume there's a guitar within arm's reach
There is.
of
Yep.
yourself.
There's five
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
within
Yeah.
arm's reach.
I'm trying to be, I don't want to get you in trouble with anybody that is also looking at your bank account going, "Where's all this money going?" Because
Oh
it's
wait,
it's
six.
an
No, there's no
expensive
the others.
hobby. Yeah, yeah. So I tend to keep a guitar at arm's length, and when I'm waiting for my computer to compute, I play guitar. I try to get creative. I relax my brain from whatever it is I'm engaged in right there, and take those moments to dip into something else and just shift those gears and enjoy music because I really enjoy playing. I don't. I used to play in bands a lot when I was much younger. I don't get to do that anymore. I got a bunch of little kids and a family, and it's a really really hard thing to do. And it's just Bo, you probably know this as well. It's hard to keep a band together. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
the musicians are a fickle group of people, and it's real easy to
Absolutely.
get someone pee in their cornflakes and get them mad at you. And
That's
next
why I ended up naming my latest musical project "No Bandwidth," because there's no band
because you
with
have
me.
no band with you. Yes, I love that. By the way, that is awesome. So you just got to make sure that you say, you know what, those precious moments that come to me, I am prepared and ready to enjoy my hobby when I can and do it, or just carve time out. It's all about time management. It's just for everything. I like I said, I have a
Hmm.
family. I gotta manage time to have with them. I gotta have manage time where I'm learning and doing and building things when it comes to IT and cybersecurity. And I got to do my job as well as make time for my hobby as well. So it's just all about look at that day and start scheduling it out and see where you can steal those precious moments to get to your favorite thing.
Perfectly balanced, as
Mm,
all things should be.
as all
Also,
things
I
should.
would say I would say a lot of for me, things go in kind of like in waves or like in
Mm,
seasons. Like I have seasons for things. Like I'll have like for example, I just spent half a year basically creating this new tool called Graph Runner, and that was like a big season for me, like to be like have that like hacker mindset, make something new in like the cybersecurity world that's, I'm going to use every day pretty much. I know other people will find it useful too. That was a season. And now I literally have decided the next musical season is starting like now. Um, and like that's something that I'm planning over the next like, few months, making another album, and it's like, it doesn't have to be something that happens every single day, right? It doesn't have to be like I'm not gonna, sacrifice things that actually have to get done, like take care of, dishes and laundry and family and all that stuff too. But I think mentally, taking like seasons to do things, you can, also keep those creative juices flowing, but also, incorporate them into other aspects of what you do.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny when you said that, I thought to myself, right? It's we can change the priority of what I want to do right now, and sometimes that's like you said, right now I want to prioritize doing music. Not that I stop doing the other things. It's just what
Right.
gets more of my attention. And if you're never flip flopping that into other things or rotating it around, you're gonna get super burned out on whatever it is that you have. Just keep the focus on, and then
Hmm.
you're gonna be like, I have to break from this. I can't even do it at all. It's much better to kind of like Sophia said, yeah, balance and everything. Yes, to just switch the priority. It's not that you stop; it's that you just prioritize something else, and that you'll continue doing that at a lesser extent. So yeah, so that's good advice right there, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Thanos, for that great piece of advice. He's a
Yes,
great role
don't
model.
make me
Look him
snap
up.
my fingers.
Look. There's a 50-50 chance you're the one disappearing, not me.
Yeah.
So go for
Would
it.
Thanos snap himself out of existence?
It would have been so funny if
That
that's
would
what
have been funny.
happens.
Like, oh man, I
Turn it
used
into
a
a
random
comedy
algorithm.
instantly. Yeah, exactly.
It was
Yes.
myself.
Now that's a movie I would have enjoyed. We'll go ahead and jump into our next question, and this one it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. This question is for Beau, and it comes to us from Dusty Hill. And Dusty Hill wants to know, Beau, when are we jamming again?
When are you jamming together?
Oh, whenever, man. Let's go. Let's go. I'm
Oh
ready.
my goodness. ZZ Top. Fun fact about ZZ Top is that they hold the record for longest original lineup of a band.
Oh,
That
Really?
until Dusty Hill died, right? I think it was Dusty. Yeah, Dusty died. Uh, it was Tres Hombres
hmm.
from start to
Mhm.
finish. They'd never had anybody else in the band except those three.
It's funny because you guys were just talking about how
Yeah.
bands will, they go
Right.
through members like underwear.
They saw they hit the right formula, I guess, and they did it. That's an interesting fact about them.
That's awesome. You
Plus,
guys dug for that picture too. That's a couple years old there.
He's locking down all his social media right now.
Yeah. Or he's changing all his profile photos.
Oh no, that's one of my favorites.
He's going to need a copy of that, Caleb.
Well, thank you for humoring us and for humoring Dusty on that question. I'm sure you guys will be in touch.
Yeah.
His,
We'll hook you up.
his people will call your people. We'll figure it out. We'll jump to another question. This one also comes to us from LinkedIn, and it's from Brandon. Brandon wants to know if getting permission from a cloud provider to test a customer's infrastructure challenging.
Oh, that's interesting. So Sophie and I, we did an intro to AWS pen testing, and we kind of looked at this topic a little bit. We broached it because AWS has some implicit allows to do pen testing, because the other for some basic pen testing stuff and with a few minor caveats, you can just go crazy because it's your stuff as long as you don't do certain things like denial of service attacks. But Beau, there are certain things you absolutely have to get permissions for. What's your experience like with that when it comes to, is it a long process, or do they kind of do they tend to go, well, let's make sure you are who you say you are? Is there legalese that kind of goes along with this stuff? What should someone expect if they want to do an actual cloud pen test on their provider?
Yeah, so basically like 6 to 8 years ago, it was drastically different. Whenever we would test a company that was leveraging cloud providers, back then we had to get permission for everything. So every single service, anytime you wanted to do like even if it's like a web application assessment, somebody's hosting a web permission for that. And back then, those forms they look like is the aim is thing like being able to people, one of the dates you're testing, do denial of service testing. And as long as you can abide by those, but no, that's like 6 to 8 years. Basically, you have full reign to do almost anything you want anymore. Like it's very rare that there's anything that we do on a pen test that's gonna even remotely touch the rules that they say are out of bounds.
So, but back in the
And
day, you're
that's
saying it used to be much more stringent. You had to get like everything you wanted to do had to be approved. It had to go to the powers
yep.
that be, and then every dot and tittle. Oh yes, yes, yes. No this, no this, yes this, and then you could go. But now we have a little more free reign.
Yep, and across all providers, they're basically the same
Gotcha.
across AWS, Azure, GCP, um, and I would say that we still tend to try to avoid any sort of heavy scanning, right? So anything that might cause like a denial of service type of scenario, or heavy fuzzing, that kind of stuff. They typically want you not to do stuff like that. But getting permission back then, so I haven't had to do it in recent memory. Um, to be honest, because
Wow.
we haven't done anything that's outside of that bounds. Um, but back then it was quick. So it was like, same day usually. Like it's usually like an email.
Excellent. Well, that's good to know, right? So if you're wanting to pen test, you've got some cloud infrastructure, then you kind of got definitely read. There are documents for each one of your
Mhm.
providers that will broach the topic of security testing for your environments, what they allow, what they don't allow. So whatever environment you're in, we've been talking about the big three, but there's definitely others that are out there. Check their documents, but I wouldn't be surprised like the Bose. If the big three are doing it this way, you're probably pretty safe on whatever other platform you might be on. But always be sure to check those documents to see what you have allowed and what is not allowed and what you need to get permission for before you
Yeah,
engage
most
in
of
those
them are worded
activities.
around most of them are worded around the infrastructure of the cloud provider itself,
Right.
right? So like think like your like hypervisor level, right? Up where you're hosting things like virtual machines,
Yeah.
right?
No trying to
Um,
jump through like different VMs and to get into other tenants. Right.
yeah, and
That,
if you do happen to do that, tell me and
yeah.
we can be friends.
Yeah. Big friends. Big good friend. You will write a paper
I
together.
know to in all honesty, like it's kind of crazy how many types of like escape types of vulnerabilities have happened in cloud providers. People don't really realize. But that's one of like the biggest fears for most companies is like, well, if I'm going to use cloud, like, how can I trust that my assets aren't going to get leveraged or get hacked by somebody who else gets hacked in the same cloud?
Mhm.
And most of the time you hear the answer, oh, well, they're segmented really well, right? But that has turned out to not be the case in a lot of scenarios. Like, there's been multiple vulnerabilities. Like, one that comes to mind is Azure Escape, was a big one where basically it was a container escape, and the research was able to hop from the container to like the container hypervisor level, and then pivot to other customers, which was a really big issue. So that's yeah, it's
Uh,
something to worry about too with these
I hope
cloud
they got a
providers.
big bug bounty for
I
that.
hope so too.
Like, was that like a pwn to own thing or just some researcher was like,
I
"Oh, this is not
I
good."
honestly don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
remember.
Well, I know somebody probably got their pockets lined for disclosing that, hopefully
Hopefully.
responsibly, right? And not hackers. So there you go. And that's what it's like to get to permission to pen test in the cloud. Sophia, question us.
I think we've got another one we're going to ask, and then we might jump into rapid fire here in a
Ooh, it's
little
almost
bit.
that
So
time.
prepare yourselves
Favorite.
because it's coming up. But this
Okay.
question, this is another one coming to us from Jerry. Jerry wants to know, how does Beau manage, prioritize, and organize his work with so many projects, i.e., systems he uses?
I'm gonna go with Adderall. No, not okay. Well, what say ye, sir?
So I mean, I try to give a good healthy balance of R&D and testing time too. So it's very easy as a pen tester to go down rabbit holes and just focus on the tasks at hand to find as many vulnerabilities as possible. But in my experience, the things that have ended up being of most benefit to not only the customer I'm currently working with, but also me and also future customers is when I can find something that maybe there isn't a tool for, or maybe there isn't a well documented technique for yet. And I spend time working on that. So I try to give a good healthy balance of not only trying to find as many vulnerabilities as possible, but also being able to do some dev work too. But so in terms of organizing that, it's really just time management. I try to stick to a pretty solid schedule. I early on, this is one thing I would say to any soon to be or maybe want to be pen testers is it's very easy to go down rabbit holes. It's very easy to, at 4 p.m. you get a shell on a system, and now you're admin, and now you're like, oh, well, what can I do with that? And to keep going and just go all night, right? Like, I've done it. Like, it's very hard to pry yourself away when you are that deep in the action, right? But you have to do it. Like, you have to take breaks. You have to go be a human, go, don't skip meals, that kind of thing. Absolutely, keep going as much as you can, but also, take those breaks. So yeah, in terms of prioritizing, managing, self-health, right? Like, and, maintaining good mental health, don't drive yourself crazy. Don't burn out.
Yeah, it's funny. I made the joke about Adderall, but I think it's one of the traits of a lot of really good cybersecurity professionals is that we have this ability to kind of shut the world off and go laser focused on something. And that can be great because we can learn really fast and we can do a lot of things and pick up things really quickly. But it can also be to our detriment because everything goes away and we just can forget to, like you say, eat. I was listening to I want to say it was at a B-Sides talk, and one of the keynote speakers used to be the project manager or the manager for the NSA hackers, the state-sponsored hackers for the United States through the NSA. She said I had to buy them shower caddies and randomly go over and go, you now need to go take a shower. They built showers and locker rooms for them because they would not leave their keyboard for days. And then we go, okay, it's time for you to leave and stand up, go over here and go in there and bathe. And then here's a fresh set of clothes. And they would keep them in clothes and soap and deodorant because they just wouldn't do it. They would just get so focused in on what they were doing, they would forget about the rest of the world. So it's funny that you bring that up. That yeah, don't forget to do those things. We're still people, and we need maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that was a great answer. But I'm going to hand it back over to Sophia because she's going to introduce us to one of our new most favorite segments.
Yes, this is a segment called Rapid Fire. How this is going to work is we're going to have 30 seconds to answer each question, or more accurately, you guys are going to have 30 seconds to answer.
We're going to do it to Beau.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Beau is going to answer this question.
You're on your own for this one. Oh, okay.
It's all Beau all the time.
It's the
Beau
help.
Show.
Oh, boy. He doesn't need help. He'll be fine.
Let's go.
So, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll jump right into it. I think we have maybe a little title card that we're going to show, and then we'll jump in.
All right.
All right, first question. How do you gain cybersecurity experience?
Mr. Robot.
That's the final answer?
Easy game.
No. Yeah, no. Hack the Box, CTFs, YouTube. YouTube has a ton of great resources for getting as much cybersecurity knowledge as you can, and building your own home labs. That's another big one. All right.
Awesome, and with time to spare. All right, next question, rough numbers. How often is cloud exploitation related to over-permissioned issues versus misconfigured tech?
I would say 95 to almost 100% of the time it's over-permissioned issues. It's an admin creating a rule or a configuration around a resource that exposes them publicly or opens them up to some sort of open wide access. That we tend to see more than anything.
All right, we're going to jump into the next one. What is the mix of cloud and on-prem assessment as cloud takes over infrastructure deployments? And what's the future of someone focusing on Active Directory assessments? Ooh, 2 and 1.
I would focus on both because they're heavily intertwined. Both on-prem and cloud, we touch on a lot. So hybrid networks are still huge. I don't see on-prem going away completely anytime soon.
All right, that was quick. Next one, what will be the future of cybersecurity professionals with the advancement of AI?
I think that every day, us as cybersecurity professionals are going to be leveraging AI to some capacity. I think that we're going to be using it for writing code. We're going to be using it to learn about new technologies and hopefully help us on the becoming a good question answer side, question asker side.
All right. Do you think deep into your professional life in your 40s plus that it's too late to get into ethical hacking to support your career in the C-suite positions?
Absolutely not. I think that you have plenty of time. I think that, life experience will be there for you anyways, right? So, being able to talk to people and being able to understand what it is that an organization needs from a C-suite perspective, you can absolutely still do. I would say focus on communication and focus on a lot of the higher level IT concepts.
It's never too late.
I was going to say, I bet Beau wishes he saw more C-suite people with some ethical hacking skills and knowledge.
Absolutely.
Probably.
It helps him deliver reports.
I would bet. All right, this next one's a fun one. You can only keep one as a Christmas movie, Home Alone or Die Hard.
Die Hard, hands down.
Easy win. I mean, why are we even asking this question? It insults me.
I will keep my mouth shut then. This next one, for those making a career change, should they focus on learning tools and processes until a company can pay for their certs, or is a certification first a must?
Ooh, that's more than a 30-second question there.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that certs are great. I have a lot of them myself, but I also think that your focus should be on learning skills and not necessarily just trying to learn something just to get a cert. Like, certs are awesome, don't get me wrong. But I would focus more on learning techniques and technologies as opposed to trying to focus on just getting a cert. And a lot of times your company will ultimately pay for you to get a cert anyway. So yeah, that's
right under the wire for that one.
Everybody should just listen to that answer over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because yes.
Yeah. Make that a podcast episode by itself. This next one says, is cyber professional fatigue a real thing? And what are some of the challenges?
Yes, absolutely. So like I was just mentioning, it's very easy to get burnt out because us as cybersecurity professionals, we're usually trained to want to continue on no matter what, because ultimately we want to find new vulnerabilities. We want to help secure networks. We want to make sure that our networks don't get hacked, right? And a lot of that stuff keeps us up at night. A lot of it keeps us, pushing forward and forward. And if we don't take breaks, if we don't have hobbies, right? If I don't go play music, then I'm gonna have a bad day. So you have to be able to break away, and moving on.
All right, this next one says, how do I convince my customers the importance of cybersecurity, especially the ones who are reluctant to invest in upgrades or training because of the costs?
I would show them the number of companies that have been hacked in recent years, right? And how it's very easy to end up in the news because you're not actually implementing, good security protections in place. And I think that ultimately that will help at least show the need for it.
All right, this next one, you have to make sure I'm asking this right. It says, are there potentially Spectre exploits on cloud servers?
Yeah, Spectre is a side channel attack.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right, for CPUs. So I would assume if they're using CPUs that have that vulnerability, then yes, right? With Beau, is that what's going on?
So I'm not too familiar with Spectre specifically, so I don't know if I have a good answer for that one. But if it's a CPU-based attack, then yeah, potentially I would say that even though you're leveraging a cloud server, it's still leveraging hardware at some point, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's potential.
All right, this next one says, if music is the medicine for the mind, how would you metaphorically describe cybersecurity in terms of its significance in your perspective?
I love the philosophical question. In 30 seconds.
Metaphorically describe cybersecurity in terms of significance. Oh man. So it would be so not the medicine for the mind, like music. It'd be the I don't know, the sunscreen for the ginger.
Yes, perfect analogy, sir.
That's an acceptable answer. I'll take that one.
We will take it. Judges, the judges will allow it.
That's a 10. That's a 10.
Okay.
All right, this is going to be our last question. This is for Beau, of course. Are you going to get back into creating YouTube content?
Man, put me on the wire here.
Right. Hot seat.
I love making YouTube videos. I do. I'm not gonna say no. I'm gonna say that it's not something that I necessarily plan on creating like a bunch of content anytime soon, and purely because I have really wanted to focus on dev work. I've wanted to focus on other things besides it. But yeah, no, I still plan on doing webcasts and webinars, that kind of thing, for a long time. But specifically making YouTube videos, I can't say that I'm going to have any out in the near future.
All right, well, that's good to know. But maybe potentially in the distant future, keep an eye out.
Listen, the YouTube community cries and weeps over that, but we also understand.
Of course,
right?
Of course. There's a lot of things going on in your life.
It's
We
true.
totally understand. Well, that was great. You did a great job. Kept it under the time
was
limit
fun.
there. So thanks so much for humoring us with that one. That's a fun little segment.
It is a fun
I
segment.
like that we do that
It
now.
is.
But we are coming up on the end of our show, so thank you so much, Beau, for joining us. Really quick before we go, I do want to talk a little bit about something that's going to be coming up in a few weeks, and I think maybe we have a little bit of a sneak peek, so we'll go ahead and toss to that. All right, so that was a sneak peek for IT Pro's favorite things that is happening December 12th at 2 p.m. We have just a couple of the things that we're going to be giving away. You want to say a couple words about yours?
It's a drone with a 4K camera. What more do I need to say? It's awesome. It's super cool. It's a cool size as well. It's 4K. I mean, would you not want this? What kind of weirdo are you?
That's literally so true. This is a camera without a drone. So it's just a camera,
Huh.
but it works like a Polaroid, right? So you get the little printed off pictures, but it also has a digital display. So you take the picture, you get to review the thing you've taken the picture of, and then you get to decide what you want to print off. We've got some film we're going to be giving away with that too. So
Very cool.
just a couple of things. Sorry, I'm reaching across trying
that's
not to
all right.
smack things around. Just a couple of the things you can see up there on the screen there are some of the other things that we're going to be giving away. Quite a lot there. An iPad, we got an AI translator, a Ring floodlight camera, pretty cool. And I believe we are also giving away a year subscription to IT Pro as well. So obviously that's not on the table because it's virtual, but that is something that you can also enter to win. So keep that in mind. And that is pretty much going to bring us, I think, to the end of our show, unless there's anything you'd like to add.
All good things, right?
All good
things.
All right, well, that is once again December 12th. That is a Tuesday, live at 2 p.m., so don't forget to join us for that. And thank you so much, Beau, for joining us for today's live show. We had a great time. Any parting words of wisdom for us?
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Daniel, for hosting. Love to have you here always. And then we've got another webinar coming up next week on Wednesday, so make sure you tune into ACI Learning for that. But that's going to do it for today's show. For Daniel Lowrie, I'm Sophie Goodwin. Thanks for joining us.